At the end of the day, the purpose of ads, in my opinion, is to show your product in front of people and get them into your listing. When people ask me which one is better, use all of them. All of them will perform differently and all of them will get you sales. That's the game, right? The game is how can we rack up as many keywords and search terms as possible that are converting profitably. PPC Masterclass in the Amazon Ads office. Let's go. If you're watching this and you don't know who I am, my name is Mina. I started on Amazon back in 2018. I actually launched a supplement brand, not on Amazon, but like just physically. I took it to gyms and stores. I tried to sell the product there. It did not work out. And I said, you know, why don't I get it on Amazon where I buy all of my supplements? So got it on Amazon and, you know, it was kind of my ticket out of my corporate 9-to-5. I was an engineer. I did amazing in corporate 9-to-5, but I didn't like my life. And I wanted to start a brand and I was hoping that I could do something I'm more passionate about. I've been an MMA fighter since 2013. I fought, competed. I've been passionate about supplements ever since I was a kid. So that's why I launched the brand. And then grew and scaled the brand. And then there was an insane amount of demand for me to help people with their Amazon PPC. And I turned people down for a year. This is all throughout 2020. I turned people down. I didn't help anyone, but the demand was too high and I think people really needed it. And so in 2021, we launched Trivium, which is an agency that, you know, manages brands. And so ever since then, I mean, right now we currently manage over 190 brands, I want to say. And I've seen everything and I'm still so involved in the day-to-day strategy, execution, optimizing bids, all of this stuff, right? And I'm always like learning kind of the new stuff. Like I was one of the first people to test like, you know, the different types of ads when they come out on MMA Nutrition, right? And I love having a brand because it's a big sandbox for me. So let's get into it. Let's go into the introduction. What is the goal of Amazon ads or Amazon PPC? If you think about what Amazon PPC does, you create a campaign. All Amazon ads can do is it can show your product in search results and in product pages. So all it does is it shows your product. That's it, right? Now, how many people click on your product is going to be based on your click-through rate. And there's 7 factors we're going to cover in a second. And then how many people convert is going to be based on your conversion rate. I'm going to cover the main things that you should be focused on when it comes to click-through rate and conversion rate. But it is a balance, right? And a lot of people that are complaining like, oh, you know, we're not converting profitably, my ACOS is too high, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of times it could be that balance. It could be the balance of people don't like your product, you don't have good enough product market fit. People look at your product and say, why should I buy this one and not that one? You know, this one has 200 reviews, your competitor has 3,000 reviews. Why should they buy yours and not theirs, right? They have way more reviews, maybe they have a better price point. So a lot of times the ads are fine, it's just the listing. The product is not good enough as a product market fit or the listing is not well optimized enough. I want you guys to look at it from that lens. When we talk about what is the goal of Amazon ads, in my opinion, the goal of Amazon ads is to identify every single search term and product page possible where your target audience or your target customer could be, right? So every single search term and then showing your product up there. Now, some of those search terms, some of those search results or product pages, you're gonna convert, others you're not. A lot of it is gonna depend on your listing. And the easiest example is this. Right now I launched, I have 10 reviews, right? I have 1,000 keywords. I might convert on 10 of them. But let's say I have 50,000 reviews. I might convert on 90% of them. You know what I mean? So with that logic, a lot of it, that balance of like PPC and making sales, it's a balance between your listing and your ads. Cool. So we've covered the goals. The goal is to increase your visibility across all the search terms possible in all the marketplaces that you can. And then once people see your ads, they're gonna make a decision whether or not they want to click on it based on 7 factors we're gonna cover. And then they're gonna make a decision once they're in the listing, should they convert? A lot of it is gonna depend on your listing quality. So the rest of the images, the bullet points, the brand story, premium plus content, do you have UGC videos, all that kind of stuff, discounts, coupons, everything, shipping speed. So the quality of the listing, that's what's gonna determine how much you convert. With Amazon ads, we just want visibility. Cool, ROI expectations. A lot of people expect that when you launch ads, you're gonna make sales. First of all, like I said, don't expect to make sales if your listing is not that good. Don't expect to make sales if your product market fit is not that good. Don't expect to make sales or make as much sales as you're expecting when you have 50 reviews versus when you have 2,000 reviews, okay? So what is the ROI expectations? When you launch, it's gonna be terrible. So I just launched a new brand. It's called Wonder Fat. It's a beef tallow brand. And this is what I told my partners. I'm like, this is the expectation, right? In the first month, we have a really good product, we have a really good listing, we're probably gonna get like a 1x ROAS. And again, I'm just ballparking numbers, this is not like real numbers, but I told them like this, to manage expectations, when you launch, you're gonna spend $1, you're gonna make $1. It's not gonna be that profitable. As we get more reviews, maybe like in the second month, expect like a 1 to 1.5. This is what I wanna see, right? When I launch, this is my ad spend, let's say $100 a day, and then 150, 200, 250. So I'm increasing my ad spend. And then at the same time, initially my sales are like 1-to-1. Then it's 1.5-to-1. Then it's 2-to-1. Then 2.5. Then 3, 3.5, 4. And that gap, right, which is the ROAS gap, is usually dependent on how many reviews you're getting, your listing quality, and your organic ranking, right? Because also organic ranking helps you get more traffic and more sales without spending money on ads. So it's the same ad spend, but more sales, which increases that return on ad spend. So I want you to expect when you launch and have low reviews, the return on investment is not going to be amazing, but over time, it's going to get better. And a lot of it is also comes down to, please stay in stock. No one message me if you're like, we were doing amazing and then we ran out of stock and then we're not doing amazing. Okay, forget it. Like, just look forward. Look at the future. What can we do to get better? But a lot of people like cling on to like, I was doing amazing, I ran out of stock and now I'm doing bad. It is what it is. When you run out of stock, it hurts, right? So stay in stock and expect that as you spend more money, your sales velocity is going to get better. As your sales velocity gets better, you should expect, your organic rank to increase, your overall ROAS to improve as you get more and more reviews. Amazon's going to show you in search results and in product pages, and then people are going to determine if they want to buy you or not based on your listing. And when we're launching, returns are going to be lower. So the importance of pre-advertising preparation. You can have the best product in the world. If your listing's not that good, even if I'm personally inside of your campaign manager, optimizing, doing the best job I cannot make your product convert if you don't have a good listing. If you don't have a product market fit, right? A lot of people come to me and I ask them this like straight up. I'm like, why should I buy your product versus your competitor who has 5,000 more reviews? If someone says, oh, it's more premium, it's more durable. Okay, like, is everyone complaining so much about durability that they're willing to like not look at anyone else and look at yours because of the durability option? Cool, if that's the case, yes. If it's not the case, and a lot of people get stuck on, okay, I'm launching a product and that's my product. No. When I launch a product, we are launching in 6 weeks, WonderFat. I already told the partners, like, we're working on V2, better packaging, better communication of the benefits, just all these different things to improve the product, to make us better than everyone else. So the core here of your brand and of your product is your product needs to solve a problem better than everyone else. You have to have the best solution on the market. That is like kind of one of the most important things that you can do when you're launching a product for you to convert profitably. Then after that, how can you convey that messaging? So what is the customer looking for? When they're buying an electrolyte powder, for example, they're looking for high amounts of active ingredients of electrolytes. They're looking for sugar-free. They're looking for no artificial ingredients. They're looking for some other like benefits, like maybe adding taurine for performance or adding amino acids or adding, glutamine or creatine or something, right? Whatever, I don't know, like we have to survey the market, my ICP, my ideal customer profile. I have to survey the market, get that information from them and make sure that that is conveyed in the messaging. A lot of times people have these amazing products and then I look at their listing, I'm like, well, I don't know. Your listing showed me your product and then it's very like nice on this like display and all this stuff. I'm like, it looks nice, but like, again, like short attention span, sell me. Boom, it does this, it does this, it does this. It's better. Okay, amazing, I'm sold. I'm gonna buy your product, it's better than everyone else. Now, the funnel on Amazon, this is what it looks like. The way that you guys are seeing the funnel right now, impressions at the top says people seeing you. Certain number of those impressions are gonna turn into clicks. And that's based on your click-through rate. So a certain number of the people who see you are gonna click on you, and then a certain number of those people in the listing are gonna convert, and that's gonna be based on your conversion rate. I'm gonna cover the click-through rate and conversion rate factors, and the reason is because I wanna make sure that you guys dial that in so you don't complain that PPC is not working. Now, something to keep in mind. This funnel is not one funnel. It is 1,000 small funnels, right? All based on each search term. So someone's gonna type in electrolyte powder, right? They're gonna see my product in the search results. That's an impression from that funnel. Certain number of those people are gonna click, certain number are gonna convert. You can get all of those micro funnels information in the search query performance report. If you guys don't know, I'll cover it in a second, but in that report, you can see all those micro funnels. You can see for each search term, the total impressions of the market. So, 1 million people saw, all the products when they searched this search term. How much percent of those impressions are you getting? And then from that, what are all the total clicks that happen? So for the search term electrolyte powder, there could have been 10,000 clicks. You got 100 of them, and so on. It goes to like add to cart and purchase as well. And always keep the customer journey in mind, right? At the end of the day, some people get sucked into the mechanics of Amazon PPC, but you don't realize like it's a human being behind their device, computer, desktop, whatever, that is shopping. So what does that customer journey look like? They're typing in a search term, they're seeing you. They look at other results, right? They're seeing you, they're looking at your competitors, they're scrolling through the pages. Then from there, they're clicking, then they're going and they're scrolling through the results. They're probably comparing you with other products. They have other tabs open of your competitors. Then they're like, electrolyte powder, that was too broad. Sugar-free electrolyte powder. They type that search term in, and then they see another set of results, and then they compare the different search results, the competitors, and you, and they click on you, and so on and so forth. So keep that in mind when you're optimizing. Because a lot of times it's not just like, let me optimize bids, let me optimize budgets. A lot of times it's understanding what is the customer journey, where are they seeing me, on a broad term, like electrolyte powder. Maybe seeing me high is not good. Maybe them seeing me too high in the search results, they're window shopping. They don't know what they want yet. And maybe a lower position is better. And then, but if they're typing in sugar-free electrolyte powder for women, they're dialed in. It's a woman, she's looking for sugar-free electrolyte powder. There's much higher buyer intent, and showing up in the top of the search results makes more sense. Okay, let's cover KPIs real quick. When it comes to ads, we're a little bit limited on what we can see. There's attribution delays, all that kind of stuff. What I look for to see if an ad is good or not is mainly two things. Return on ad spend on the ad, like overall. So return on ad spend on a search term, and click-through rate. The reason I do click-through rate is because, again, the whole purpose of me running the ad is to get people into the listing, right? Think of it as like let's say I have a coffee shop, right? And the ad is like basically someone that's like grabbing people and saying, come, you gotta try this coffee, right? That's the ad, right? It's just getting people to the coffee shop. Once they're in, it's on the coffee shop. Like if it smells bad, they're not gonna buy the coffee. If it's like trash on the floor, they're not gonna buy the coffee. That's kind of the vibe. So for me, click-through rate is a huge KPI, because if your click-through rate is high, it means a lot of people who see this ad are interested in clicking on it and going into your listing. So it shows me that there's intent there. Now, sometimes ROAS can get lost in the sauce because, I'm showing up an ad for my unflavored electrolyte powder and they're going and buying in the mango pineapple. So click-through rate is super high, but the ROAS is low. But if I look at it overall, it actually converted, profitably, right? And a lot of what I'm going to talk about, people really want a formula and they want to dial in. There's no formula, unfortunately, right? It's iteration. If you guys don't know what iteration is, it's basically like I'm in the shower, right? And I'm not in the shower, I'm not setting my temperature to 19.2 degrees Celsius and I'm going to have the perfect water temperature. You're going in, you're turning in the hot water. You're putting your hand, it's too hot, dialing it in. Okay, it's too cold, dialing it in. Okay, it's too hot, dialing it in. It's too cold. That's iteration. And PPC is literally iteration. So I'm going in, I'm launching, a campaign, 4 keywords, whatever. I'm looking at the performance. Okay, it's not getting enough impressions, increasing the bids. It's not getting increasing the bids. Okay, now it's getting clicks, but no sales. Okay, let's give it a little bit more time. Now it's getting clicks, still no sales. Okay, let me lower the bid. Okay, now converted, and it converted profitably. And that's essentially how you have to think about Amazon ads. Is a lot of it is just iterating. And part of the reason why, if you guys watched any of my other videos, I have the bulking and cutting of Amazon PPC, where I like to move things in one direction, which is either increase bids, increase budgets, increase bid by placement, etc. Move everything in one direction, because I'm expecting ad spend to increase, revenue to increase, but I know profit's gonna go down. And at the same time, if I'm trying to lean out and become more profitable, I'm lowering bids, lowering bid by placements, adding negatives, doing things all in one direction, and I'm expecting ad spend to go down. Revenue's probably gonna drop a little bit, but profit's gonna go up. If I'm adding negatives and lowering bids and also launching campaigns and increasing bids, it's gonna be very, very hard to figure out if what I did is correct or not correct. So before you start, let's cover the listing real quick. Here's the 7 factors that, in my opinion, mainly affect click-through rate. Main image. You wanna have a very attractive main image that showcases the product, super clean. If you have a picture and like there's a glare on it, it's hard to read the label, consider doing a 3D render or something, or maybe a better picture. I like eye candy. Again, you can't control your label now, but if your label is designed in a way that has, big brand name and then a bunch of like small stuff, consider redoing the label and think about the customer. Think about, I'm a customer, I'm looking to buy electrolytes. I have to make it super clear that this is electrolytes, sugar-free hydration powder, right? It has to be plain and simple. It's only for hydration. So main image, title is gonna matter, obviously. Star rating and review count, that's obviously huge. What I've seen is your ads could be performing terrible at a 4-star. And you go to 4.3 star. This happened to me back in 2019. I remember this very vividly. I was in Dubai and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm at a 4.2. I'm like, like if only, I could do something to like increase my sales on Amazon. I'm watching all these videos and courses. And then A few reviews came in, I went to 4.3 and my revenue went from 20,000 to 35,000 in the course of a week, right? And so that is the power of, 4-star versus 4.5-star, rating. This is just my example, but that's how more effective your ads can be when your listing is, more optimized. Coupons, obviously, the coupon has that green color or sometimes the blue color, and it attracts people. And if you have like a deal, like a lightning deal or something, it shows up differently. So coupon is also something that can attract people to click on your listing. Badges, the overall pick badge, Amazon's choice badge, bestseller badge. Bestseller badge is the GOAT. If you hit the bestseller badge, I've seen sales like go crazy. Price and price per. So price is big, right? Obviously, we know people are sensitive. So when people ask me like, Mina, what's your advice on price? It's very simple. Test it, right? So I was at $19.99 when I launched 2018, and I slowly increased, and it's gonna be this sort of like bell curve, right? So as I increase my price, my profit goes up, and then I hit a point, and at that point, if I increase my price more, my click-through rate and conversion rate starts to go down because I become a little bit too expensive and I start losing profit. So what you want to do is, it's like plotting, right? You want to try the different price points, and some people have like minimum advertised pricing, like restrictions, et cetera. I'm just talking to the people that can control their pricing. Test different price points and see where you can have the best click-through rate, best conversion rate, and best profit combo. At the end of the day, it's not about click-through and conversion rate. At the end of the day, it's about bottom line profit, the money that is going to get transferred into my bank account. That is what matters, right? That's what you take to the bank. That's what you're going to take home. And then shipping speed. One of the biggest things is people ask me all the time, like, can I test, like, starting out with FBM and then going to FBA? Why would anyone I don't know, but why would anyone look at your product that is going to arrive a week from now and your competitor that's going to arrive overnight tomorrow or the day after and go with, the one that they have to wait a week for? I mean, you ask yourself, when's the last time you were cool going with something that took way longer when you have a very close alternative that comes like next day? So pay attention to shipping speed. Having low inventory hurts that. FBM versus, if all your competitors are FBA and you're FBM, that's gonna hurt it. A lot of those different things. Evaluate your product detail page. Make sure that you are selling your unique selling proposition. Make sure that you're fully utilizing creatives. All the images, videos on the listing, brand story, and premium A+ content. I think premium A+ content helps out a lot. And a well thought out pricing strategy. So a lot of people come to me and they're like, priced at $44.99. The market average is, in the 30s. And I'm like, why are you so expensive? We're a premium brand. Cool. What does that mean? Means you decided to be premium, or means like you packaged your stuff as premium, or like, do you have something in your product that makes you significantly premium? Another great example of product market fit, I was doing like a live presentation and I asked a friend to give me an example of a product. He gave me an electronic drum set. So one thing that you could do when we're talking about product market fit and being able to like charge more for your product, if you think about who's buying electronic drum sets, it's probably children. Children have parents. Parents probably don't want to hear the like loud, like whatever, drumming. So if someone were to come up with a product like an electronic drum set that made almost no sound, like it said average drum set was like, 60 decibels. Ours is 18 because we have like this special coating, makes you not hear anything, you know what I mean? You would have a better product market fit. You would be better than everyone else. That's premium. That is, now you can charge more because I don't care that there's all these other competitors that have, a bunch of reviews, etc., and a lower price. You're the only one that is 19 decibels. They're all at like 40, 50, 60 decibels. I want my kid to have their drum set without me, getting a headache every night. I'm gonna go with that one. Let's get into the sauce, Amazon PPC. So let's talk about like housekeeping, like staying organized. First of all, let's talk about portfolios. You can use portfolios however you want. Portfolios are basically like folders. And in those folders, you can put campaigns. So they're folders for campaigns. The way I like to use them is I like to do one portfolio for one parent ASIN. The reason that I don't do child variations is because of the reason that I mentioned earlier, where I could run ads on my sugar-free unflavored product, and then people would buy the Fruit Blast because they like the packets, or they want to buy the Blue Raz or the Mango Pineapple because they like flavors. And so I don't want to look at the performance and say, oh my God, unflavored, it spent $500 and like, $100 in sales. And then Blue Raz, wow, it spent $200 with $1,000 in sales, and like be delusional and think like Blue Raz is just so amazing, right? It's probably the people that are coming in from the unflavored are seeing the variations and then they're buying one of the other ones, right? That's the reason I like to keep all the ads blended. Now, I'll talk about variations a little bit deeply in a second, but this is what I would do when I start, right? You have variations. People ask me all the time, Mina, I have 4 variations. Which one should I run in my ads? what I do is pretty simple. I launch the campaign with the keywords with all the variations. I wait a week, 2 weeks, and I look at the performance of the variations on a click-through rate basis. And again, this is an impression click-through rate balance, right? If a variation got 10,000 impressions and has 0.5% click-through rate, and the other one got 50 impressions and has a 1.2% click-through rate, that's not the better one, right? Obviously, you can't compare. One got 10,000 impressions, the other one barely got any impressions. So if you have two that got similar impressions, one got 10,000, one got 9,000, one has a 0.5% click-through rate, the other one has a 0.8% click-through rate, even if the ROAS of like the one, is better than the other, I will probably keep the one with a higher click-through rate, because at the end of the day, the purpose of ads, in my opinion, is to show your product in front of people and get them into your listing, right? And so if one of my variations, which maybe like the chocolate is like the nicer one or the vanilla is the nicer one, if it's getting more people into the listing, let's use that. And again, this is not global. So I'm not gonna launch one campaign and I'm like, oh, chocolate outperformed, chocolate only. No. Every single campaign will have all the variations, and then every single time I'm then auditing and then removing the variations that didn't get a high click-through rate or didn't perform and keeping the one that performed. So again, back to portfolios, the way I like to do portfolios is one portfolio per one parent product, and then inside I'll have all the campaigns of that. Some people do auto and manual and this, and they break it. I'm like, it gets too crazy. And what's the purpose at the end of the day? I'm just trying to go through one product at a time and keep it clean. Next. Campaign naming convention. This is huge for a few reasons. Sometimes I want to see the performance of a certain type of campaign or a certain purpose of campaign or whatever, or just a certain product. When you have a really good campaign naming convention in the search, you can type in the product code, or you can type in product codes -ad type, and it will very easily give you just the performance on those. And one thing I really like is you have in the campaign manager, you have that dashboard, right? You have where you can see the trending over time for the different stuff. If you have a really good campaign naming convention, you can filter, and then you can see that dashboard filtered. I'll show you guys an example, actually. Let's jump in here. Okay, so right now you're seeing all this, right? So in here, I can type in okay, how is just HU performing, which is hard work unflavored. And then now it's just filtered, and it showed me the performance of all the unflavored campaigns, right here. Let's say I want to do spend and I want to do sales, right? Or let's keep impressions, right? So this is the performance at a glance. I can also go back and see all the trends in different date ranges. Let's say I want to go just do branded. So I say new branded. Perfect. So now $100 in spend, $937 in sales. So as you can see, now I'm looking at the branded performance. I can also see, interesting, I had a lot of impressions on this day, what happened in terms of branded. And then this can start to be a concern, why are my impressions dying down on my branded term? Cool. And then again, remember 95 in spend, 937 in sales. If we just go HU, 200 and 1,000 in sales. So 9x ROAS, 5x ROAS. So now I can very quickly say, oh, my branded search terms are giving me a 9x, my total is a 5x. So the way that I do it is product code. ASIN is a product code, right? But come on, good luck remembering ASINs. So for me, it's HU, hard work unflavored, HBR, hard work blue ras, HMP, hard work mango pineapple, HUFP, hard work unflavored packets. And then the ad type. So it could be auto, or it could be manual, it could be SP, it could be SB, it could be SD, whatever the ad type is. This is your naming convention. So this is a guide. You come up with your own thing that is going to be very easy for you to find and filter. Then the ad subtype. Close match, loose match, complements, substitutes, broad, phrase exact. If I'm doing product targeting, I could do PAT or PT or whatever. And then special identifiers. So branded could be one, branded keywords, or high performing auto, for example. So maybe I want to track to see every time I find search terms in auto that performed well and I put them in their own campaigns, what happened, right? I can start to look at some trends and some patterns. And then account and portfolio level budget caps. Some people are worried that they're going to overspend. And so they put budget caps, they put portfolio level budget caps or account level budget caps. Personally, what I like to do is I like to have no budget caps, right? And let Amazon's algorithm optimize for whatever, right? For the best performance. And I will start with lower bids. So if I'm controlling my bids, right? Let's say I do a 0.2 bid, for electrolyte powder. I'm going to show up in the bottom of page 100. So I'm not going to get any clicks. And as I increase the bids, what's going to happen is my impressions hypothetically should go up, and my clicks should go up, and et cetera, et cetera. And this way I can actually control my spending and my budget based on the bid level by controlling each bid, instead of just having a cap. And then, when you have the cap, it's you don't know. You can't really tell where the allocation is going when you have a cap, right? Like you say, I have a $100 budget cap. Does the money go to this campaign or this campaign or this campaign? You don't know. But when you have no cap and you're controlling by the bids, you know that you're hitting it as hard as you can on the keyword level. If you want to spend more on a keyword, you increase the bids. If you want to spend more on a keyword and a campaign, you max the budget on a campaign. So instead of, like, let's say $100 daily budget, you could put $1,000 daily budget. Again, start with a low bid and increase your bids slowly. And that should hypothetically give you the most amount of, like, flexibility of control on the keyword level, as opposed to, having some sort of like cap or control that you're not fully aware, like how does a cap or control work. Campaign structure best practices. So in my opinion, I like to do one campaign, one ad group, no more than 5 keywords. And I'll explain why. So campaign, obviously. Under ad groups, you can do multiple ad groups or you can do a single ad group. The reason I like a single ad group is I like to see the budget flow from the campaign to the ad group all the way to the keywords. If I have multiple ad groups, the campaign budget will then split between the ad groups. And that split, to me, is unclear. It's unclear, is it gonna go 50-50, 70-30, 80-20? We don't know, right? Because you're not setting the budget on the ad group level, you're setting it on the campaign level. I wanna have full control. So I like to have one campaign, one ad group. So basically, like, if we have one ad group, it's like we can skip the ad group. We're just going campaign all the way down to a keyword level. And then a lot of people are gonna tell me, okay, Mina, single keyword campaigns or 5 or 10 or 100, like, how do you choose? For me, single campaign is great, right? You have a lot of control. You know that all the budget's flowing to that keyword. I sometimes will do 5 keywords in a campaign, no more than 5, because when I've noticed when I do more, like 10, 15, 20, 25, you can sort by spend and you'll see the top keywords will start spending, and then the spending goes down, and then usually, like, past keyword like 6, 7, 8 is just gonna be no spend. And so if I have a keyword in a campaign and it's not getting spend, what is the purpose of it, right? There's no purpose. It's not doing anything. So it's as if you're not even having the campaign. But here's where it gets deceiving. If I'm running my audit and I'm saying, okay, I'm gonna do a keyword coverage, do I have all these keywords covered? Am I targeting all these keywords? It's gonna be like, yeah, you're targeting, you're doing amazing. You have all those keywords in campaigns. Amazing, but I have these keywords that are not spending money, they're not getting impressions. What's the point of having them in those campaigns, right? They're essentially useless. So what I would do is go in, audit all of your ad groups and your campaigns, go last 60 days, what hasn't spent money or any significant amount of money in the last 60 days, pause them in those campaigns and launch them in new campaigns. Because at the end of the day, in the last 60 days, you didn't spend on that keyword. You could kind of go do a reverse ACE and lookup and see where you're ranked sponsored for that keyword, right? And so if you're ranked low sponsored, you're not spending on that keyword, what is the point, right? It's essentially like you're not actually running it. Let's talk about budgets. A lot of people ask me about starting budget, starting bid. This is my philosophy. I like the budget to be as high as possible, daily budget. Even if you're not spending that money, it doesn't matter. I want to have a clear ceiling. I don't want to have a ceiling. If I could have open budget, I would do open budget. And I would control the spending on a bid level. If you're afraid to spend, start with a low bid. If you start with a 0.01 bid, you're gonna be fine. You're not gonna spend any money. And then I work my way up slowly, up on the bids. And then I start seeing spending. I start seeing more spending and more spending. And then I'm inching my way up, getting spend on that search term, and then getting conversions. Sometimes if I'm a little bit too high, I'll lower the bid, get a lower, cost per click, maybe show up in a lower position where people have a higher buyer intent, and then convert on that keyword. Maybe I don't convert, so I keep lowering the bids and then stop spending money, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm just not able to convert for that keyword. And remember, that is gonna be not dependent on just the PPC. It's also fully dependent on your listing. So today, I come into your accounts, perfect. Let me add negatives, let me pause, let me do, lower the bids, all this stuff for all these keywords. 1 year from now, you got 1,000 more reviews. A lot of those keywords, if I bring them back to where they were, now they're converting, right? Because you have a better conversion rate because you have way more reviews. So remember, this is dynamic. It's not like, oh, this keyword didn't work for me in this specific campaign. It means it'll never work for you. Maybe it didn't work for you right now or in this specific campaign, but sometimes relaunching it makes it like it just works, right? I don't know why, but it's always worth a test. And then sometimes a year from now, when you have a better listing, better images, better reviews, it works. You'll never know until you test. And then, okay, let's talk about, again, budget. So the way to think about budget is this. Right now I have $100 daily budget. This $100, if I'm just starting, it's all test budget, right? And so I'm gonna test whatever, a certain number of keywords. Now, remember, you need to get a certain amount of spend per each keyword before you make a decision. So If I spend $100, which is 100 keywords, one click, $1 per keyword. Now, amazing. I have 100 keywords that spent $1, one click. I don't have enough data, right? Because if it spends a second click and it's $2 and my product's $40, it makes a sale. That's a 20x ROAS. Amazing. But it didn't hit that threshold. So what I like to do is when I'm first starting out, I put a threshold per keyword. So when I'm first starting out, I know my listing is bad, it has low reviews, and I'm like, okay, if it spends 75% of the product price with no sales, I'm gonna lower the bids or add it as a negative because it's just too much. I can't afford it anymore. So let's say I have a $40 product, $30 in spend and no sales, pause it, add it as a negative. And so when I'm launching these keywords, I'm keeping that in mind. $100 daily is my budget. Let's say I launch 10 keywords and they start spending. So $30 each spend. So I'm probably gonna spend the threshold on 3 keywords a day, or maybe like it's gonna take 3-4 days to spend it on like, 6 or 8 keywords. And then I'm gonna keep making those decisions. So it spends $30 in the first keyword. Maybe it converted, amazing. Could convert profitably, can convert medium, it could not convert, right? It's a spectrum. So if it converted, amazing, I keep it. If it's like medium, I'll try and optimize it. If it's bad or didn't convert at all, then I'm probably gonna add it as a negative. And so let's say I start with $100. Out of that $100 when I launch, let's say 20 of them converts profitably. 20 is mid, and then the other 60 didn't convert. So now I have $20 of performance spend, and now $80 of still test budget. So I'm gonna take that $80 and repurpose it, launch more search terms, more keywords, whatever. Now out of that 80, 20 performed, and then 60 didn't perform. So now I have $40 a day of keywords performing profitably and 60 not performing. Repeat, repeat, repeat until all of the 100, test budget is now all performing. So now those search terms are profitable, they're converting, and I've gotten my best with my existing listing. I've gotten my best return on ad spend that I can get from that $100. Then I'm gonna be like, okay, now increase. How much? Probably, I like to increase by 25% increments. So go from 100, 125. Take that $25 daily spend, launch more keywords, whatever. Keywords, product targets, categories, you guys know what I mean. And then test that. Okay, out of that $25, 5 converted, the other 20 didn't convert, amazing. Again and again and again, now I have 125. And it's like fishing, you know what I mean? I'm fishing for search terms that are gonna be profitable, and I'll cover like how we find those search terms, all that stuff in a little bit, but that's essentially what I'm doing. Match types. A lot of people ask me which match type is better. Okay, here's the deal. All of them perform. All of them can perform. They're just different. They're different types of ads. Exact will only trigger for that keyword or like misspellings or whatever. Phrase for like similar keywords. Broad is like gonna be like much wider. Exact, you're probably gonna show up just for that keyword. Phrase and broad, you're gonna show up for a bunch of different keywords. So that means that you need to optimize for that because you're showing up for many different keywords. So with broad and phrase, like I might launch electrolyte powder, broad, phrase, and exact. I always launch all of them at the same time. With exact, performance is performance. With phrase and broad, I go into the search term report. And in the search term report, it's gonna say, okay, electrolyte powder, broad. These 50 keywords, search terms, these 50 search terms showed up. Okay, which of them performed? Keep them. Like they converted profitably, keep them. These ones spent money, didn't make sales, negatives, okay? Now, the search terms that worked, they'll continue to show, and then it's gonna show for more, like another 20 more, okay? Again, go back in the search term report the next week or whatever, depending on how fast you're spending money on that search term. If you're spending quick, you go in quick. These ones are still performing well. These ones aren't performing well. Negative, negative, negative. Okay, now, finally, after optimizing, that broad search term is performing well. That phrase one, same thing. Exact is exact. So you look at it, however it's performing, increase the bids, decrease the bids, whatever. It's just that one search term or like misspellings or plurals, whatever. So when people ask me which one is better, use all of them. All of them will perform differently and all of them will get you sales. That's the game, right? The game is how can we rack up as many keywords and search terms as possible that are converting profitably. Auto-targeting. Close match, loose match, complement substitutes. Close match is closely related search terms. Loose match, loosely. Complements are complementary products, substitutes are direct competitors. Again, Amazon is determining this in the back end. All you need to know is this. You're gonna launch all of them. Probably, if you're being conservative, close match and substitutes usually perform better, and you can tell right away. The game is the same, right? You're gonna go in, you're gonna launch them, you're gonna go in, optimize by adding negatives to anything that didn't perform, anything that spent, and I'll show you the optimization. I have the search term and the bulk sheet, search term report bulk sheet pulled up, so I'll show you in person how to do it. But any search term, spent money, didn't make sales, or has a really high ACOS with very few orders, add as negatives, negative, negatives. I'm cleaning up the close match, I'm cleaning up the loose match, cleaning up the complement substitutes until it's performing well. And remember, a year from now, I could go in, remove some negatives, it could start showing up for those negatives, and because I have a much better listing, a much higher number of reviews, those search terms could be converting. So we have keyword targeting, we have product targeting. Keyword targeting, broad phrasing exact. Product targeting, you have product pages and you have categories. Same exact thing. Product target is going to be one product. Categories is going to be a whole category. And in the category targeting, you could do some refinements. So sometimes I like to launch category targeting where it's only competitors that are more expensive and have lower star rating than me. So like, let's say 3.5 or 4 stars or less and like more expensive than me. To get a little bit more refined. But you could also just launch the entire category. There's a bunch of subcategories. And when I say category, it's like subcategory. Like when you go into the ASIN, scroll down, it'll tell you you're in health and household, and then under it, your subcategory is like energy drinks. So that's the category. You can launch the different categories, and then you could refine it from the beginning, or you could just wait, see what it's triggering for. Anything that's profitable, keep it. Anything that's not profitable, add it as negative. Same thing. How to combine targeting types. I like to keep everything super separate. So I don't like to mix broad, phrase, and exact in the same campaign. So one campaign for broad, one for phrase, one for exact, one for product targeting, one for category targeting. The reason that I don't mix broad and phrase and exact together is broad is going to trigger for a lot of search terms. Exact is going to trigger only for that search term. What I've noticed is if you put broad with exact, because broad has a much higher search volume because there's so many different keywords it's triggering for, it could potentially take all the budget, and exact doesn't get enough budget, as much budget. And what could happen is that exact search term maybe only gets searched 1,000 times a month, but it could perform very well. But because right above it is a broad and it's getting searched 50,000 times a month because it has 50 keywords at 1,000 times a month, the budget's going there because technically it has a higher likelihood of converting, even though it's not as profitable, because it has a higher search volume, which means more people are going to see your ad, more people are going to click on you. Bidding strategy, starting bid, we talked about it. It's straight up iteration. Increase the bids, you should get higher impressions or whatever, and look at your performance. Decrease the bid, look at your performance. At a certain bid level, you should convert profitably if you're going to convert at all. And if you do, that's the bid. And then also remember that is dynamic. So you could be at this bid level, you're performing amazing. All of a sudden, 4 of your competitors drop their price. Now you're not performing amazing, okay? And you have to lower the bid or something like that. So you're always iterating, you're always changing the bids. Keyword research. So when I start, I'm launching a product, when I'm doing my keyword research, there's a bunch of tools out there and there's reports out there. What I aim to do is I aim to just get broad list of keywords. Anyways, I'm gonna launch my auto campaigns, close match, loose match, complement substitutes, the main keywords for the high search volume keyword for the product. And I'm gonna let Amazon and the broad and the phrase and the auto do a lot of the work for me. So once I launch those keywords and the auto campaigns, I'm gonna go into the search term report and it's gonna show me what I showed up for and what I converted on. That is the highest quality data that you can get because it's real data, real customer data. All of the tools out there, they tell you this is high search volume, super high relevancy, whatever. Again, this is just, you're getting ideas. You're getting ideas from them. You anyways have to launch it, anyways have to test it, anyways have to spend on it, and then from there you can make a decision. The fastest way to do this, in my opinion, is the auto, broad, and phrase campaigns. I call them the discovery campaigns. Launching them results in what? It results in you launching those campaigns, getting a bunch of data. In the search term report, you're gonna very quickly figure out, okay, I converted profitably for these 20 keywords and I'm not targeting them. Let me extract them, launch them in their own campaigns. Broad, phrase, and exact, okay? Some of them are gonna perform, some are not. I'm gonna go into the search term report, eliminate any of the wasted spend, so clicks and no sales or spend and no sales, and then maybe I'm gonna find more and then extract them, launch them in more campaigns. And that's how I scale up. Let's get into performance analysis and optimization. So I'm gonna jump into the search term report and in the bulk sheet. So this is the search term report. If you guys don't know where to download it, you can go here, measurement and reporting, and then sponsored ads reports. Cool. So let's go back here. Very quickly to go over this. You have the start and end date of the campaign, the portfolio name, campaign name, ad group name, what the targeting is. So this is where it starts to become important. This is the keyword that you're targeting, okay? And this is the match type associated with that keyword. So this is bone broth exact. This is organic bone broth phrase. Let's see. This is beef bone broth broad. Now, look at this. Beef bone broth. One keyword. Broad. Look at how many search terms it triggered for. Let's count. What is that? 74. So one keyword, one broad keyword, well, beef bone broth is a broad term, but one keyword, broad match type, resulted in 74 different search terms. Obviously, not all of them are going to perform well. So anyways, I'll keep going. You have the match type, you have the actual search term. So, you know, the bone broth, or let's see here, organic bone broth, Nutra Organics bone broth, this is what I showed up for. Organic bone broth, bouillon cubes, this is what I showed up for. Now, obviously, if I'm selling a bone broth powder supplement and I'm showing up for bouillon cubes, might not be as relevant. But I usually don't try to predict the future or anything like that. I just work off of the data. So let's keep going. Impressions. Number of times that ad showed up in the search results. Clicks, number of clicks. Click-through rate, clicks divided by impressions. So what percentage of people who saw you clicked on you? Cost per click, the cost of each click. Your total spend on that keyword, your sales on that keyword, your ACOS on that keyword, and then ROAS, the inverse of ACOS. Orders, da-da-da-da. You can just read the titles. This is how I would go about this. Okay, so when I'm in the search term report, I have two main goals. One goal is identifying profitable search terms. The other goal is eliminating wasted spend. So I highlight everything, sort and filter. Let's start with the wasted spend. There's two categories when it comes to wasted spend. Spend and no sales, so it spent money above a certain threshold, remember, and no sales, or it made a sale, but the ACOS was too high, but it made a small number of sales, okay? One of the biggest mistakes I ever made initially was the keyword electrolyte powder was performing, but the ACOS was 85%. But when I looked at the sales, it was actually generating like 150 orders or whatever every 7 days. So my genius idea was ACOS is too high for this keyword. I'm gonna add it as a negative. I added as a negative, and next thing you know, my sales are going down. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? My sales are going down like super hard. And then I realized I just negatived a main sales driver. My advice would be avoid negativing things, even if the ACOS is really high. Avoid negativing something that's driving a lot of sales. Optimize everything first, and then we could talk about that the one that's driving a lot of sales. Maybe it's more of a listing thing than it is an ads thing. Okay, so let's focus on the first one. So spend and no sales. So I'm gonna go here, 7 days total sales, clear this, select 0. This is everything, spend and no sales. I'm gonna sort from Z to A, so highest to lowest spend. So let's say this is a $40 product, and we agree together that $20 in spend and no sales, that's too much. So what I'm going is right here. Let's go. I'm gonna highlight it in like a light red. Okay, so $20 in spend and no sales, just not performing anymore. One thing I forgot to mention, when it comes to the match type, I'm only gonna show broad phrase and auto. The reason I don't show exact is I'm not gonna negative the exact, I'm just gonna go and lower the bid on the exact, because I have an opportunity to still save that exact term by lowering the bids, and maybe if I show up lower in the search results and someone scrolls all the way down to like middle of page 2, bottom of page 2, and then clicks on me, they have a much higher buyer intent and they're actually gonna buy, as opposed to, here we can't really control the positioning, right? It's just showing up where it's showing up. And I don't want to lower the bid on the entire keyword, because maybe bean bone broth organic grass-fed, maybe there's 10 search terms in there that's performing really well. I don't want to affect those search terms. I'd rather just negative the ones that are not working well. So again, I highlighted these. All I'm going to do, this is super simple, is take that search term, find that campaign, and go add it as a negative in that campaign. Cool. So this is spend and no sales, and then we can also do high ACOS and low sales. So in this case here, I'm doing select all. So this actually did have spend, but I of course don't want to do stuff that like spent a lot of money. So what I could do is add a value. So here, let's see. So is less than, so let's say less than 40. Actually, what's easier than spend? Let's just do orders, right? Because I can go off of a number. So 7 days orders, perfect. So in this case, if it had like 1 or 2 orders, and then let me do an ACOS filter. So I'm gonna go to the ACOS filter. Where is it? Right here. And the ACOS is, let's do a condition, greater than, let's say 70%. So 0.7, okay? And yeah, so these are all the search terms I can actually sort here, 0 to A. So these are all the search terms. 1 or 2 sales, and look at their ACOS, right? So again, I can just highlight this whole list. And again, these are just like broad and phrase. Cool. So now we've identified search terms that have a really high ACOS and low sales. Look at the sales, look at the spend. So I would essentially eliminate, let's see. I would eliminate $900 in sales, but I would save $1,000 in spend. So I would cut down $1,000 in spend. I would probably lose $900 in sales, but keep in mind, you're only probably making 20% profit. So you're probably gonna lose 20% of 900, call it $180. So you're gonna lose $180, but you're gonna save $1,000. So you're net at least $800 more profit just by doing this. Cool. Now let's do the vice versa, which is, okay, let's identify profitable search terms. So in this case, let me select everything. Let's get rid of these filters. None, select all. Okay, perfect. So now I want to find profitable search terms. So how do I find profitable search terms? Just put a condition on the ACOS. So in this case, condition ACOS is less than, let's do 35%, right? So 0.35. And you guys are going to be asking me, okay, how are you coming up with this? How are you coming up with this number, 35%? Listen, at the end of the day, this is a made up number, right? It's not, there's no science behind why I'm choosing 35%. The way that it's going to work is pretty simple. Let's say you're looking for profitable search terms. Start wide. Start at like 50, 60, 70%, whatever. Just pick a number, right? Again, it's iteration. So pick a number. And let's say you start picking everything that's, 50% and under. And you're like, it's actually some of those are not performing as well. So you go a little bit tighter, 40% under, then 30% under. And then vice versa with like, high ACOS and low sales. What is a high ACOS? So maybe you start at like anything above 80% and like low sales, add it as negative. Then you're like, I feel like I'm cutting down my, my revenue is dropping too much. Okay, let's go a little bit looser. Anything above 90, anything above 100. Or you feel like everything above 80% ACOS and no sale and low sales, that's not making enough of an impact. Let's go 70, let's go 60. Just pick a number. Go looser than you normally would. So if you're looking for profitable search terms, you can start like at 20 and then go up to 30 and then go up to 40, or vice versa. Start at 50, then go down to 40, then go down 30, down to 20. With adding negatives, same thing. You can start anything above 100, not making enough impact. Okay, above 90, above 80, above 70, above 60, and so on. So now I identified profitable search terms. So these are all, I'm gonna sort by ACOS. Okay, so these are all search terms, all the way from, something very, very low, like this is 0.001, and sales, 1%, 2%, 3%, all the way up to 35% ACOS. So these are all potential search terms that I could be targeting. Now, I could be already targeting them. So you have to do deduplication. So what I do is I take my bulk sheet, I put in my bulk sheet, and then I put in my search term report and my criteria. So I say, okay, in the search term report, I'm looking for 35% ACOS and under search terms that converted. And it takes all the keywords that I'm targeting in my bulk sheet, keyword and match type, and it says, okay, so beef broth soup, you are not targeting this in broad and phrase. You are in exact. So it will tell me, okay, this search term, you still haven't targeted in broad and phrase. So now I have all the search terms that are profitable in the search term report that I am not currently targeting, and I'll start launching them in their own campaigns. Same exact thing like we were talking about. One campaign, one ad group, no more than 5 keywords. I usually like to group keywords with similar search volume. So don't take a very high search volume keyword with a low search volume, because you're gonna have the same thing that happens with the broad and exact. The one with the higher search volume might dominate. And then if you ask me, what should I do like in terms of like bid? I would just start with the cost per click. Now I know this question is coming. When you graduate search terms, right? I don't know why people came up with this amazing idea, but when you graduate search terms, add them as negatives so like for example, some people do this, right? Low salt bone broth. I found it in this, bone broth organic phrase. So I'm gonna put it in its own campaign and I'm gonna add it as negative here. This kills me. This kills me because I've made that mistake and it's killed me. You are not guaranteed performance. There's no guarantee. If it performed here, there is 0% guarantee that it's gonna perform when you launch its own campaign. So don't kill something that's working because you think now by launching its own campaign is gonna have, you cannot assume that it's gonna perform. I've done it before, I've launched it, added as negative, lost the performance in the phrase and the broad, and I launched it as all campaigns and it didn't perform. Why? I have no idea. Don't ask me. I don't know why. I did everything I could, it just didn't work. So please don't add negatives to something that's already working. All right, now bulk sheets is kind of very similar. It's basically everything I just showed you, but the only difference is it's so much simpler. So you can see here you have the product, the entity, the operation. One thing about the operation is if you're adjusting a bid, make sure to, in the operation, say update. I'll give you the exact thing, but I think it's like update, because when you upload the bulk sheet to Amazon, it's gonna look and see what the operation is, and if the operation is create or update, create, it adds it, update, it updates it, right? And if it's not there, it's not gonna make any changes. But again, it's the exact same thing. In this case, all we're looking for is the exact and the product targeting. The ones that they don't have match types or anything like that. And so highlight everything, sort and filter. I think there's a column here where it says match type. Yes, this is the easiest. So let me clear everything. Let's go to exact. So this is all the exact keywords that we're targeting right here. This is the exact keyword and this is the bid. So what I could do is say, okay, I wanna lower the bids on keywords that are not performing well. So this is the definition, in my opinion, of not performing well. Spend and no sales. So let's go here, clear, zero sales, sort by spend, Z to A, perfect. And remember, these are all keywords that are spending money with no sales. So let's say anything above $20. I'm gonna go here, and in this case, I'm just gonna lower the bids. Now there's gonna be a question. What's the magic formula for lowering the bids? Is it break-even ACOS minus target ACOS divided 1.5? No, it is iteration. So 2.34, I'm just gonna lower the bids to 2.3, okay? That's all I'm doing, that's it. I'm slowly lowering the bids. I don't wanna over-lower. Now, when it comes to something that's not performing, we could be, it's spent and didn't make sales, so it's like not a big deal, but I just want to lower the bids, and show up in lower and lower positions, because potentially, again, if someone makes it all the way to the bottom of page 2 and clicks on you, they have a higher buyer intent. But again, we're just testing here at this point. And then vice versa, if a keyword is performing well, so, I'm gonna do sort by ACOS, show like lowest to highest, 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, let's say all the way up to 20% ACOS. If it's performing well, I would test increasing the bids a little bit to see if it shows up maybe higher or it gets more impressions, if I can get more sales from that keyword. Again, you watched how I'm doing my optimization. A lot of it is based on ACOS ROAS. That's kind of the main KPI that we have. Click-through rate is another one, right? And I haven't messed around with click-through rate too much. When it comes to click-through rate, look at the different variations, and like sometimes you can have search terms that have really good click-through rate. Like for me, if search terms have really good click-through rate, I'm really inclined to not optimize them. But here's the problem with click-through rate, right? It's very dependent on your impressions. So the keyword electrolyte powder, the click-through rate is always going to hover between like 0.2 to 0.3% for me. And then I can have like a random sugar-free electrolyte powder for women, click-through rate is 1.2 to 1.3. So if I'm basing everything off of click-through rate, it's not really apples to apples, because like the keyword, electrolyte powder is so broad, I'm never gonna win, all right? Like if I'm just comparing click-through rates, right? But that keyword, I know for a fact, drives so much sales for me, because when I've paused it, added as negative, done anything like that, it's hurt me. Growth opportunities. So here's the final thing. Search gap analysis. Once, have launched campaigns and all this kind of stuff, people ask me, okay, what's the next step for growth? So number 1, always improving your click-through rate. Number 2, always improving your conversion rate, because the more that you do that, the more you can spend on ads. Your threshold, your ceiling is going to become higher because now you can spend more and convert and make more money. The other thing is a search term gap analysis. So basically, going into the search query performance report, going into search term report, identifying all of the search terms possible that you could be showing up for, and seeing where you're showing up for those search terms. Are you showing up? Are you getting impressions? The search query performance report is great because, and again, do it on an ASIN level, not a brand level. But on an ASIN level, it shows you, okay, your product is not actually ranking that high organically or sponsored for these search terms. Let's try spending more money. Let's try increasing the bids. Or if that's not working, let's try relaunching in the own campaign, in another campaign, and see if we can show up higher to gain more impression share. And again, under the assumption that my purchase rate is high for those search terms. So I'm going to identify search terms where my purchase rate is high or my click-through rate is high. Amazon is telling me, like, people who come in from that search term are inclined to buy you. Let me show up higher and higher for those people. Or let me show up at all if I'm not showing up. Scaling successful campaigns. Touching on that quickly, when I see a campaign performing and the return on ad spend is high, you know, the ACOS is low, ROAS is high, I like to increase the budgets. Even if you have a $100 daily budget and you're spending $30 a day, going to 150, 200, 250, it's not gonna hurt, right? But at least you might end up spending more money on a profitable campaign, which results in more profitable sale. All right, placement optimization. This is the last thing I'm gonna touch on quick. So we have the bid, right? So we have a keyword and we have a bid. And so let's say electrolyte powder, $1. In each campaign, you can click here, go into Amazon, go into campaigns, click on, you know, this campaign. So you'll see here, in this campaign, I'm getting data for 3 placements. How I performed in the top of search, how I performed in the rest of the search, which is like everything else, and how I performed in the product pages. So if you see that your ROAS is exceptionally better in the top of the search than in, you know, rest of the search product pages, it's warranted that you could increase your bid, your base bid, by a percentage if and only if you show up in the top of the search. So let's say electrolyte powder, $1 bid. But I noticed that in the placements, it tells me when you show up in the top of the search, your ROAS is 8x. When you show up in the rest of the search, your ROAS is 5x. So I'm inclined to say, okay, let's add 20%, 30%, 40% to my bid. So I'm willing to spend a $1.20, $1.30, $1.40 bid if and only if I'm going to show up in the top of search first page. Because historically, based on the data, when I've showed up in that placement, I've converted better. Okay, so that's the final piece of optimization. And remember, today, I could say, oh, 16x ROAS, I'm going to increase my bid adjustment. Tomorrow, that ROAS could be worse. So, or not tomorrow, but like later, you know, 30 days from now, you need to revisit it. So I would revisit every single week. And if you revisit it and you notice, oh, it's not performing as well as it used to be, you can lower the bids. Okay, let's touch on sponsored brand and sponsored brand video. So sponsored brand, there's 2 placements that sponsored brand shows up: headline search ad and video. The way I like to use sponsored brand ads is the following. Number 1, for my brand name. So if someone types in my brand name, I want to make sure I have the headline search ad and I want to make sure I have a video. The second way I like to use sponsored video is if I see that I have not performed well with sponsored products. So like my sponsored rank is low anyways, I like to try using a creative, so a headline ad or a video ad, to see if that could potentially work better and I could actually get conversions from that. But be careful, you have to measure incremental growth from sponsored brand. So it's not like let's launch sponsored brand for the sake of launching sponsored brand. Definitely protect your brand name. But if you're gonna launch sponsored brand, the way I like to do it is keep everything with PPC the same, launch sponsored brand ads, headline and video, in search terms where you haven't been able to convert, you know, you're not getting any, like not that many impressions or whatever, not that many clicks and sales, and try a different type of ad, it might work for you. Guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much to Amazon Ads for having me and for making all this happen and for sponsoring all of this. All right, guys, kill it. Hopefully this was helpful. All right, peace out.